You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
We find ourselves in front of the rectory of the Federal University of Paraíba, a public higher education institution in the northeast of Brazil, which will be 70 years old in 2025. From this campus in the capital João Pessoa, young researchers are conducting contemporary studies on an important period in Brazilian history, the Dutch occupation of 17th century Brazil. The episode in which Europeans in the service of the Dutch West India Company colonized territories on behalf of the Dutch government is of particular interest here because the state of Paraíba was also under Dutch rule between 1634 and 1654, in a period marked by conflicts and transformations driven by interest in the lucrative sugar trade. As well as being a sugar producer, the captaincy of Paraíba was strategically important for the control of the northeastern coast and for supporting operations in Pernambuco, the seat of government of Dutch Brazil after 1630. The West India Company carried out 3 expeditions to conquer Paraíba. The first 2 were stopped, but the third in December 1634 resulted in the conquest of the captaincy, with the taking of the fort of Cabedelo and the city of Filipea, now João Pessoa. The name Filipea was a tribute to King Felipe IV, from when Brazil was under the rule of the Iberian Union, and because of the historical Dutch antipathy towards the monarch, the city was renamed Frederica or Frederikstad in honor of the Prince of Orange, Frederick Henry. Administration during this period left a series of documents, records, and memories that have been studied to this day. In several universities around the world, Dutch colonization is the subject of dissertations and theses in a range of fields of scientific research. The Dutch custom of recording many of the events in Brazil involving their exploration, as well as the expedition and discovery of the territory as a whole, is fundamental to this. One of the most famous writings, for example, is The Diary of a Soldier of the West India Company by Ambrosio Richtshofer, a document published in 1678 referring to the years 1629 to 1632, and it is still referenced by academics today. For Brazil, 2 other books are also major references: O Brasil Hollandês, Dutch Brazil, and Tempo dos Flamengos, Time of the Flemish, by Evaldo Cabral de Mello and José Antonio Gonçalves de Mello, respectively. But the academic process is in constant movement and renewal. Fernando Rodrigues, a PhD student at the Federal University of Paraíba, believes that the study of Dutch Brazil should always be done by reviewing the research already carried out and even challenging the classics like those by Cabral de Mello and Gonçalves de Mello. Fernando's research also aims to look at the historical period from a decolonial perspective.
Os clássicos, eles estão desatualizados com relação aos termos, às novas exigências de vocabulário, de significados.
The classics are out of date in respect to the terms they use, new vocabulary requirements, meanings, and symbols, and they need to be updated. As a recent doctoral researcher, I see a great need to make this decolonial reflection on everything that may have already been said, because the perspectives are going to be either from the European point of view, as was done a lot in the 1950s and in the 50s onwards, the perspective of the colonized administrator, of the colonized who were not at the base of this pyramid of colonization. So, in my doctoral research, I start from a reflection by Max Weber, the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, to think about these Dutch who came here. But he is my starting point, but he is not my point of arrival, because my point of arrival is the decolonial analysis of this Dutch period.
Na minha pesquisa de doutorado, eu parto de uma reflexão de Max Weber, a ética protestante, o espírito do capitalismo, para pensar esses holandeses que vieram para cá, mas ele é meu ponto de partida, mas não é meu ponto de chegada, porque o meu ponto de chegada é a análise decolonial desse período holandês.
In addition to the different perspectives that can be used in this study, researchers today also have a more globalized scenario due to the internet. Tiago Soares, who holds a master's degree in history from the Federal University of Pernambuco, is one of the academics favored by this connectivity. His dissertation was on the figure of the escolteto, or schout in Dutch, in local administration in Dutch Brazil, a kind of tax collector, prosecutor, and police chief rolled into one. Tiago believes in wide access to information and to other scholars as allies in his research.
Até então a gente via uma pesquisa muito fechada, sabe? Eu quero pesquisar
Now we
esse
have
pedaço
many
de
exchanges
tempo,
of
esse
studies
pedaço de
between
terra,
researchers.
com essas fontes
Until
aqui.
recently,
Hoje em
we
dia,
saw very
os
closed
historiadores
research,
brasileiros
you know.
conversam com historiadores
I want to
portugueses,
research
conversam com
this piece of
historiadores
time here, this
neerlandeses,
piece of
conversam
land
com
with these
historiadores
resources
americanos.
here.
Há uma grande troca de
Nowadays,
informação.
Brazilian
E a
historians
própria
talk to
facilidade que a
Portuguese
internet
historians
dá
who talk to
de
Dutch
acesso à
historians who talk to
informação e
American
acesso a pessoas.
historians. There's a
também pela
great
questão da língua.
exchange of
Por
information
exemplo,
due to
se
the
eu não
very
soubesse holandês,
ease with
eu
which the internet
dificilmente
provides
conseguiria fazer
access to
uma tese sobre o
information
Brasil
and
holandês,
access to
porque
people.
eu não conseguiria
And
ler o
also
documento
because of the language
existente lá.
issue, for example,
Hoje em dia eu
if
posso
I didn't
conversar
know
com
Dutch, I
pesquisadores,
would
posso
hardly
pegar
be able to do a
próprio tradutor
thesis
de
on
internet,
Dutch
dá
Brazil
muita mais
because I
facilidade
wouldn't be able to read the
em
documents there.
estudar o
Nowadays,
tema
I can talk to
do que
researchers and
seria
I can
há
get
30
my own
anos
internet
atrás, por exemplo.
translator.
Acho que
It's much
era
easier to study the
estudo muito
subject
mais
than it would have
nichado
been 30 years
antigamente,
ago,
hoje em
for
dia tá
example.
mais aberto
I think it was a
às
much more niche
possibilidades.
study in the past. Nowadays, it's much more open to possibilities. Fernando and Tiago are just two examples of the thousands of researchers on Dutch Brazil in the country. After all, the subject is studied at undergraduate, master's, doctoral, and further levels. The questioning of ideas, critical thinking, and the use of the various digital tools available are increasingly driving the exploration of Brazil's past with the Dutch, revealing complex layers of colonialism in Brazil, proving that science is fundamental to building an understanding of our identity in the present and in the future.